Hi, welcome to the Ultimate Sports Blog Podcast. Today is Friday, February 9th, 2018. Today I want to talk about the next richest NFL player that received a contract extension, recap what went on in the NBA the last 2 days in terms of games, and the same for college basketball, and also make picks for the NBA games this weekend that are going to be on TV, and same for college basketball. Jimmy Garappolo is the man who got paid yesterday. 5 years, $137 million contract extension given out by the San Francisco 49ers. Well-deserved. He was the best quarterback in football the last month of the season. Yes, I did just say that. The Niners went undefeated in games that he started. Got them out of contention for a top 5 pick. And you got to give Garappolo credit. That team's going to have high expectations next season with the top 10 pick. They have cap space. They might sign some guys in the free agent market. That's going to be a popular playoff pick for next season in terms of preseason NFL predictions for 2018. In the NBA, Wednesday night, ESPN had the doubleheader. The first game, which was a classic in terms of regular season games, the Cleveland Cavaliers defeated the Minnesota Timberwolves by a score of 140-138 in overtime. Absolutely no defense played in this game. The funny thing is that half of the guys played on the Cavaliers in this game are no longer members of the Cavaliers after that big trade they made, which happened to be the next day. Cleveland now 31-22. Minnesota drops to 34-23. LeBron James hit the buzzer beater over Jimmy Butler in overtime. He led the way, 37 points, 10 rebounds, 15 assists. Jimmy Butler of the Timberwolves had 35 points in defeat. Butler's been a great addition to the Timberwolves this season and really has made a big impact and the big reason why the Timberwolves are headed for the playoffs this year. And in the nightcap of the doubleheader was a dud. The San Antonio Spurs laid the smackdown to the Phoenix Suns 129-81. San Antonio improves to 35-21. Phoenix drops to 18-38. LaMarcus Aldridge had 23 points and 13 rebounds and 4 assists in the win. Alex Len had 14 points in defeat. Last night in the doubleheader, the Celtics defeated the Wizards by a score of 110-104 in overtime. The Celtics improved to 40-16. Wizards dropped to 31-24. Kyrie Irving put up 28 points and 6 assists for the Celtics, and Otto Porter Jr. put up 27 points and 11 rebounds for the Wiz. And in the last game of the doubleheader last night, the Los Angeles Lakers defeated the Oklahoma City Thunder by a score of 106-81 in their first game without Jordan Clarkson and Larry Nance Jr. The Lakers improved to 23-31. The Oklahoma City drops to 31-25. Carmelo Anthony and Russell Westbrook sat this game out, so it makes sense why this was a blowout. Paul George had 29 points, 9 rebounds, and 3 assists in the game, and Kentavious Caldwell-Pope 20 points in the victory. I went 1-3 in terms of picking those games. The lone game I got correct was San Antonio defeating Phoenix. I was wrong with the Cavs game. I picked Minnesota, and the Cavs came out with an expiring effort, and LeBron James won it for them at the buzzer. I went 0-2 yesterday. I took the Wizards at home, and then I took Oklahoma City, but I had no idea that Westbrook and Anthony were going to sit in those games. Big games this weekend. We got a doubleheader tonight, an intriguing doubleheader in terms of players facing their former teams. You have Blake Griffin and the Pistons hosting the Clippers. So this is Blake Griffin's first game against his former team. Griffin will lead the way. The Pistons are on a roll. 5 straight wins since acquiring Griffin. Make it 6 straight for the Pistons as they wrap up a spot in Eastern Conference playoffs, as I assume they will. And I'm going to say it's a close game. Give me 110-104 Same score as that Wizards-Celtics game last night. Except I think it'll be a regulation game, not an overtime game. In the second half of the doubleheader, you have another homecoming. Jimmy Butler and Taj Gibson and Tom Thibodeau return to Chicago as the Timberwolves face the Bulls. I think the Timberwolves win this game by double digits. Won't be shocked if the Bulls hang around for maybe 3 quarters. I think Zach LaVine will be excited to play his former team, as well as Lauri Markkanen, who didn't play for the Timberwolves, but he was that pick that turned out to be Markkanen was in the Jimmy Butler trade, so I think he'll be motivated. Chris Dunn's out for the Bulls, or else I think he would have been motivated in playing this game as well. Part of the reason why I think Minnesota by double digits is because of the absence of Dunn. So give me Minnesota 114-100. Thibodeau, Gibson, Butler. I think they'll all get nice hands from the Chicago crowd, although Thibodeau went back there last year, but he didn't have Butler and Gibson with him at this time last year. I think Butler's going to be the best player on the court. He'll be motivated to play against his former team. He's the best player on the team now. Instead of the best player on a bad team, he's now the best player on the team that could very well be a top 4 seed in the Western Conference playoffs this season. So give me the Timberwolves over the Bulls. Saturday primetime this week, Golden State hosts San Antonio. Warriors are going to win that one big. No Kawhi. Aldridge will play well. There's some matchups in his favor in this game. Same with Pau Gasol. They have the front court advantage in that game, but the Warriors are just better. Durant and Curry could each put up 30 in that game. Warriors show up for these national games, although they no-showed the Oklahoma City game. But this is ABC. This is the Spurs, a team that, if Kawhi comes back, can very well be in the Western Conference Finals. So give me the Warriors 120-105. I think this is a blowout. A blowout that the final score won't be as it won't be as close on the scoreboard, I'll put it that way. 120-105, although it'll feel much worse than that for San Antonio. And in the Sunday Showcase game on ABC is Boston hosting Cleveland. It's an afternoon game on ABC. It's Cleveland's first game against a good team with the new team. They played tonight against the Hawks, but it's whatever. It's the Hawks. The Hawks stink. So, you know what? Give me the Celtics at home. I think this Cavs thing is going to take a couple games to gel, these new guys. I think it's close, though. LeBron's going to keep them in the game. I'm going to say 113-110 Celtics. Kyrie's going to be motivated to play against his former team. So give me the Celtics. College hoops, I'm going to recap what went on these last 2 days and pick the big games for the weekend. Couple interesting results I want to get to. First, we have Wednesday's games. Penn State defeated Maryland by a score of 74-70. I had Penn State on the podcast. They improved to 17-9. Maryland drops to 16-10. Lamar Stevens of Penn State put up 25 points in the win. Anthony Cohen of Maryland put up 15 in the loss. Florida defeated LSU by a score of 73-54. Florida improves to 16-8. LSU drops to 13-10. Jalen Hudson of Florida put up 18 in the win. Brandon Sampson of LSU put up 17 in the loss. I had Florida on the podcast, if I didn't mention that before. Virginia defeated Florida State 59-55. I had Virginia on the podcast. That was a pick I did not feel all that great about. They improved to 23-1. Florida State drops to 17-7. Devon Hall of Virginia put up 17 in the win. MJ Walker put up 10 in defeat. Miami defeated Wake Forest by a score of 87-81. Miami improves to 18-5. Wake drops to 9-15. Lonnie Walker of Miami put up 19 in the win. Bryant Crawford of Wake put up 23 in defeat. Marquette defeats Seton Hall 88-85 on the road. That was a nice win for Marquette to make get interesting for them. 14-10 they improve, and then Hall drops to 17-7. Marcus Howard of Marquette put up 32 points in the win. Desi Rodriguez of Seton Hall put up 21 in defeat. Both of these teams have big games this weekend. St. John's defeated Villanova by a score of 79-75 in what is the most shocking result of the last 2 days. St. John's second straight upset win. They improved to 12-13. Villanova drops to 22-2. Shamori Pons again leads the way for the Red Storm, 26 points. Jalen Brunson put up 28 in defeat. St. John's has an interesting game tomorrow that I'll pick on this podcast. So, another big win for Chris Mullins' team. Kansas State got a big win on the road, 67-64 over Texas. They improved to 17-7. Texas drops to 15-9. Mohamed Bamba put up 18 points in defeat. Dean Wade put up 16 points in the victory. And I had Villanova, Seton Hall, and Texas on the podcast all lost. And another loser, I'm about to say, Purdue, they lost at home to Ohio State. I had Purdue on the podcast. Ohio State defeats Purdue at Purdue, 64-63. Ohio State improves to 21-5. Big time win for them, meanwhile. And then Purdue drops to 23-3. Carson Edwards put up 28 in defeat, and Kaeda Bates Diop of Ohio State put up 18 in the win. So big win for Chris Holton's team. Vanderbilt defeated Georgia 81-66. I had Vandy on the podcast. They improved to 9-15. Georgia drops to 13-10. Saban Lee put up 19 in the win. Yante Mayton of Georgia put up 20 in defeat. Virginia Tech defeated NC State by a score of 85-75. Virginia Tech was my pick on the podcast. They improved to 17-7. NC State drops to 16-8. Justin Robinson of Virginia Tech put up 32 in the win. Omer Yurstafson of NC State put up 20 in defeat. Auburn suffered its first home loss of the season, their first loss in a long time. 81-80 at the hands of the Texas A&M Aggies, who improved to 16-8. Auburn drops to 21-3. TJ Starks of the Aggies put up 23 in the win. Mustafa Heron of Auburn put up 28 in defeat. Creighton defeated DePaul by a score of 76-75 in the game that they absolutely had to have. They improved to 18-6. DePaul drops to 9-14. Marine Marek of DePaul put up 23 in defeat. Marcus Foster of Creighton put up 29 in the win. I had Creighton on the podcast. I had Auburn as well. Texas Tech defeated Iowa State by a score of 76-58. I had Texas Tech on the podcast. They improved to 20-4. Iowa State drops to 12-11. Zaire Smith of Texas Tech put up 21 in the win. Cameron Lard of Iowa State put up 22 in the loss. In the last game I picked for Wednesday night, another upset. Number 23 Nevada goes down to UNLV, 86-78. UNLV improves to 17-7. Nevada drops to 20-5. Jordan Caroline of Nevada put up 18 in the win. In the defeat. And then Jovan Mooring put up 31 in the win. Thursday, couple interesting results. By the way, I went 8-6 for Wednesday's games, 6-3 for Thursday. So, couple upsets factored into that. A couple unexpected results. But hey, it's okay. I'm not crying over it. Clemson defeated Pitt by a score of 72-48. I had Clemson on the podcast. They improved to 20-4. Pitt drops to 8-17. Gabe DeVoe of Clemson put up 25 points in the win. Terrell Brown of Pitt put up 19 in the loss. Louisville defeated Georgia Tech by a score of 77-54. Louisville improves to 17-8. Georgia Tech drops to 11-13. Jordan Nwora of Louisville put up 16 in the win, and Josh Ogoki of Georgia Tech put up 25 in the loss. So big win for Louisville after losing a couple home games. to teams that they shouldn't be losing to. In the biggest game of these last 2 days, North Carolina defeated Duke by a score of 82-78, the 21st ranked team in the country. The Tar Heels of North Carolina improved to 18-7, and number 9 Duke drops to 9-5. Joel Berry put up 21 in the win, and Gary Trent Jr. of Duke put up 16 in the loss. So big time win for the Tar Heels of North Carolina, who could have used one at this point because they've had a couple bad losses. Houston defeated SMU by a score of 67-58. Big win for Houston. They improved to 18-5. SMU drops to 15-9. Armani Brooks of Houston put up 23 in the win, and Jamal McMurray of SMU put up 17 points in the loss. Gonzaga defeated Pacific by a score of 71-61. I had Gonzaga on the podcast. They improved to 22-4. Pacific drops to 12-14. And by the way, I had Duke on the podcast. I was wrong. And I had Houston on the podcast. I was correct. Killian Tilly of Gonzaga put up 21 in the win. Roberto Gallion of Pacific put up 15 in defeat. Number 11, St. Mary's defeated Loyola of Marymount 83-72. St. Mary's improves to 24-2. Loyola Marymount drops to 7-17. Jock Landell of St. Mary's put up 21 in the win. Eli Scott of Loyola Marymount put up 16 in the loss. UCLA upset Arizona by a score of 82-74. I had Arizona on the podcast. I was wrong. UCLA improves to 17-7. Arizona drops to 19-6. Aaron Holiday of UCLA put up 17 in the win. Alonzo Trier of Arizona put up 17 in the loss. So big time win for UCLA. They should be on the right side of the bubble. Speaking of big time wins, Oregon got one 65-40 over Washington. Oregon improves to 16-8. Washington drops to 17-7. Trey Brown of Oregon put up 21 in the win. Noah Dickerson put up 14 in the loss. In the last game, I picked... Oh, wait a minute. I screwed this up on my sheet. I had Oregon marked, and I had that as an X, so I went 7-2 in the picks instead of 6-3. That's a little bit better than I thought. The last game I picked on this podcast, Arizona State defeated USC 80-78. Great win for Arizona State. I had them on the podcast. They improved to 18-6. USC drops to 17-8. Trey Holder put up 22 for Arizona State and also banked in the shot jumper with 1.6 seconds left to win the game. And Nick Rakovic of USC put up 19 in defeat. Now, the picks for the weekend. Couple big ones on the weekend that we got to get to here. Only one pick for tomorrow that's involving a ranked team. That's number 18, Rhode Island, that takes on Davidson. Rhode Island's going to win that game by double digits, so I shouldn't sweat that one out. Saturday has a couple interesting matchups that I want to get to. I picked a ton of Saturday games. A big one in the Big Ten as Maryland hosts Northwestern. Give me the Terrapins at home. Both of these teams are lingering in the bubble conversation. I'm going to say Maryland gets the big win at home. South Carolina hosts Florida. Florida's been up and down. This is a trap game. Give me the Gamecocks to pull off the upset at home, even though they're not headed for the tournament. The most intriguing team in America over these past 6-7 days, the St. John's Red Storm, coming off 2 straight upsets, are now home against Marquette. You know what? Give me the Johnnies. I think they're going to win again to get back to 500, and this will be a brutal loss for Marquette as they sweated out on the bubble. And here's something interesting. St. John's every year hosts the Big East Tournament. The Big East Tournament's at Madison Square Garden. And if they let's say they lose one more game in league play, and then they drop one in the tournament. and they have 15 losses. That's interesting. Is that NIT or is that NCAA tournament bound? Let's see how many get in the win column. But if they get the 20, if they're 20-15 on Selection Sunday, then they are worth talking about. But if they obviously win the Big East tournament, they get the auto bid. So that's an interesting team to watch this last month of the season, the St. John's Red Storm. That would be an incredible story if they turned it around after an 0-11 start in the Big East. And speaking of the Big East, number 1 Villanova hosts Butler. Give me Villanova to bounce back from that loss to St. John's. Number 19 West Virginia hosts Oklahoma State. West Virginia is coming off the great win over Oklahoma. I think they're going to follow that up with a win here, win their third straight to move up in these rankings. A lot of teams have lost that are in front of them. So if they win this game against Oklahoma State, expect them to move up. Another big game, but in the ACC, you have NC State hosting UNC. I'm going to say UNC goes down. This is going to have a little bit of a letdown after the big Duke win. So the number 21 team in the country suffers an L yet again to the Wolfpack of NC State. Number 25 Miami at Boston College. This is a trap game for the Hurricanes, but give me the Hurricanes to get the win. Mississippi State at Missouri. Mizzou, there's this story about Michael Porter Jr. possibly coming back, and that certainly can't be ruled out at this point. I like Mizzou to get the win here to keep themselves in the conversation, although Mississippi State can use some wins because they're looking like a bubble team right now, according to a couple bracket things I've seen lately. I'm going to get more into bracket stuff on the next podcast, and if nothing major happens over the weekend. Number 10, Kansas at Baylor. You know what? Give me Baylor to pull off the upset. They can use a big win right now, and Kansas almost lost to Baylor a couple weeks ago, Fog Allen. So I think Baylor picks them off here. Just a gut feeling. Number 17, Oklahoma at Iowa State. Give me Oklahoma. That would be bad if they lost this game. Although Iowa State beat West Virginia, so they could beat anybody. Texas at TCU, give me TCU at home. So, interesting Big 12 slate there. Number 5, Xavier at Creighton. Give me Creighton to pull off the upset. I really like this Creighton team. Xavier's playing really well, but I really like Creighton here at home. Creighton could use a big win. Number 8, Auburn at Georgia. Give me Auburn to bounce back. I don't like how Georgia looked against Vanderbilt. Florida State at Notre Dame. Give me the Fighting Irish at home. In the best game of the weekend, you have number 3 Purdue at number 4 Michigan State. I think Sparty was snubbed of game day. Game day should be going there instead of Charlottesville. Though Virginia's a good team and all, but this should be where game day should be. I have a gut feeling that they avoided Michigan State to stay away from the Nassar mess. So, that said, I like Sparty here at home. Purdue just lost to Ohio State, and although Michigan State almost lost to Iowa too recently, but I like Sparty at home, and Miles Bridges will lead the way. Rutgers is at Nebraska. Give me Nebraska at home. That'd be a big win for Nebraska. They're on a roll right now, the Cornhuskers. Seton Hall's at Georgetown. Seton Hall absolutely has to have this game. Give me Seton Hall. One game I'm not going to pick on the podcast, but it's worth mentioning. LSU hosts Ole Miss. I think LSU will win that game. LSU's in that bubble conversation. DePaul hosts Providence. This is a game I'm going to pick for the podcast. Give me Providence at home. They need this one. Anyone who gets DePaul on their schedule from now on is pretty much a must-win. I said that about St. John's the last couple weeks, but St. John's is playing really well right now, so that's not an automatic win for anybody now, as they showed Wednesday night and on Saturday against Duke. And those are the best 2 teams they've played all year, and they knocked them both off. God, that's enough St. John's talk on this podcast for now. We'll talk about them more on the next podcast, assuming my pick comes in that they'll win again. The next game on this list, Ohio State hosts Iowa. Ohio State has to win this game followed up the big win at Purdue. So giving Ohio State to knock off the Hawkeyes. I can see the Hawkeyes having a little bit of a letdown after almost picking off Sparty. Number 15, Tennessee at Alabama. Give me the Crimson Tide at home. They absolutely have to have this game. I think Tennessee can afford a loss here. I think they're comfortably in. Alabama has had some weird losses lately. A win over Tennessee would be nice for the Tide. Number 22, Wichita State hosts UConn. Wichita State's going to destroy UConn. Give me the Shockers at home. And in the place where game day shouldn't be, Charlottesville, you have number 2 Virginia hosting Virginia Tech. Virginia Tech's a nice team. But give me Virginia at home. They're just way better than Virginia Tech. UCLA at Arizona State's an interesting one. Give me Arizona State at home to follow up the win over USC. UCLA is headed for a letdown after the big win at Arizona in the McHale Center. And then you have another game in the Big 12. You have Kansas State hosting Texas Tech. I think the number 17 in the country goes down, and Kansas State gets a big win on its home court. They're due for a big game, a big win. They lost badly at West Virginia last week. They lost at home against Kansas. They need one of these wins against a good team in the conference. They have an Oklahoma win, but I think they'll pick off Tech. Tech's due to lose a game. This is it. I'm going to say Kansas State pulls off a win here. And a team that needs a bounce-back win, number 23 ranked Nevada hosts San Diego State. San Diego State's one of the better Mountain West teams, but I think Nevada wins. I'm not going to pick this game on the podcast, but the team that just knocked off Nevada, UNLV, hosts Wyoming. Both of these teams actually picked off Wyoming this year. Nevada this year. UNLV should win that game. That's not towards my picks. This game's towards my picks, though. Number 24, Kentucky at Texas A&M. I think Kentucky drops their second straight. A&M's going to follow up the Auburn win with the win at home. I could totally see it going the other way around and slapping me in the face. I could totally see a letdown from the Aggies here. But they're home. I like the home team here. So John Calipari's group will not be ranked come Monday. Vanderbilt's at Arkansas. Give me Arkansas at home. And Arkansas needs to get these wins over the lesser teams of their conference. Boise State at Utah State. Give me Boise State. They're in that large conversation, so give me Boise. In the second biggest game of the weekend, in terms of importance, you have number 11 St. Mary's hosting number 12 Gonzaga. St. Mary's beat Gonzaga a couple weeks ago, and I think they'll beat them again here. St. Mary's is one of the 2 most underrated teams in college basketball. They'll get a nice win for their resume here. I think this game is actually bigger for St. Mary's, just because Gonzaga has that reputation of being there all the time, and this is a big opportunity for the Gales. So give me St. Mary's at home. This is, I think, the best St. Mary's team over the last couple of years, better than last year's team. I think St. Mary's gets the big win here. Washington at Oregon State. Washington needs a bounce-back game after their loss that I predicted at Oregon. And I think Washington gets the win here, so give me the Huskies. In the last pick for Saturday, you have number 13 Arizona hosting USC. Give me Arizona at home, the bounce back from their loss against UCLA. One of these teams, the loser of this game, is kind of in trouble, and that would be USC. Back-to-back losses against the 2 Arizona schools. And this might put USC right on the bubble. So it'd be a good opportunity for the Trojans here, although I think the Wildcats are bound to bounce back after a disappointing loss on their home floor and on national TV. Sunday's games, I only have a few. Louisville's at Pitt. Give me Louisville on the road. Michigan's at Wisconsin. Give me the number 20 ranked Michigan Wolverines on the road. Wake Forest at Syracuse. Syracuse at home. By the way, that win that Syracuse got over Louisville in the beginning of the week was a big one, and I think vaulted them back in the picture for the tournament. So follow that up with a win at home, and they should, because Wake's among the 2 worst teams in that conference, along with Pitt. Number 6, Cincinnati, a little bit of a trap game at SMU. Give me Cincinnati on the road. This is my least confident pick of the entire weekend. I can't believe I'm saying that because there's a lot of tricky games Saturday. This is the one I'm least confident in because I think SMU can beat Cincinnati. I really do. But give me Cincinnati here on the road. A game that I'm not going to pick, or a game I'm not going to count towards the podcast, but it's worth noting. Stanford at Colorado. I think Colorado would win that game. Number 9, Duke at Georgia Tech. I think Duke bounces back from the loss at Carolina. So give me the Blue Devils on the road. Tulane's at Houston. Houston, it's on a roll. Give me Houston. A game I'm not picking on the podcast, Penn State at Illinois. But it's worth noting. I think Penn State gets the win on the road. And the game that I'm going to pick, the last pick of the weekend towards my podcast, Washington State's at Oregon. I think Oregon follows up the big win over Washington with another win over Washington State. This is a big the must win for the Ducks to get themselves in the picture. That middle of the Pac-12 is kind of murky with Arizona State, the 2 California schools in USC and UCLA, and then you have Oregon in the mix as well. I think 2 of those teams get in. It's probably going to be and Washington as well. So I think 2 or 3 get in. Most likely USC and Arizona State. Definitely Arizona State because Arizona State has all those really good wins. USC has some good wins. And then obviously Washington has a couple good wins as well. And then now I think UCLA will probably get in. And I think Oregon puts themselves in the conversation as well. So Monday I'll be back recapping the weekend. If any other breaking news happens over the weekend in any sport, I'll talk about it. The Olympics started yesterday. The opening ceremony was this morning. Maybe I'll get into the Olympics a little bit on my podcast. And I want to do like a mock bracket for Monday as well. I hope you guys enjoy the